Here is a popular question about the Stark's legendary Valyrian Greatsword, ICE. Did Ned Stark use ICE in battle? So the sword ICE was created in Valyria before the Doom. It's 400 years old, and it's named after a legacy from the Age of Heroes, when the Starks were kings in the north. Whether that legacy is another sword or a person, we don't know. ICE was as wide as a man's hand, and taller than Robb Stark. It was a big sword, a true two-handed greatsword. Ned used ICE to behead Garrett in the books, and Will in the show. Afterwards, he washed the blood off at the pool by the Winterfell heart tree. The tree may have absorbed the blood of many beheadings over the years. Cleaning his sword may have been an accidental blood sacrifice to the heart tree, and in turn, Werewood.net may have absorbed their histories, their memories, their stories, their songs. Ned used ICE in the books to sacrifice Lady for Nymeria's alleged crimes, and Sir Ilyn Payne confiscated ICE when Ned was taken prisoner. Then he respectfully used Ned's own sword to behead him. When Tywin Lannister arrived King's Landing, he took possession of ICE and melted it down into two swords. One presented to Joffrey as a wedding gift, and one to the now one-handed Jaime. Joffrey named his sword Widow's Wail, implying that it will make widows wail when they hear news of their fallen husbands, and Jaime named his sword Oathkeeper, asking Brienne to use Ned's own steel to go find and protect his daughters. In the show, they changed it up a bit and had Brienne name it Oathkeeper, and we have to wonder if Widow's Wail might be used to make a certain widow wail. So that's the history of ICE. Now let's figure out if Ned used ICE in battle. We've got three sources: the books, the show, and then non-canon stuff. It's unclear when Ned first obtained ICE. We don't know if his father, Lord Rickard Stark, brought it to King's Landing when Mad King Aerys imprisoned Ned's older brother Brandon, and if he did, we don't know if Mad King Aerys returned it, or if Ned got it back after they sacked King's Landing, probably the latter. But we do know, at least in the show, that Ned did not use ICE at the Tower of Joy, so either Ned did not have ICE yet, or he chose not to use it. Two fun facts, real quick, related to the Tower of Joy. Dane and the Night King. Sir Arthur Dane's sword, Dawn, is a long sword in the show instead of a great sword as it is in the books. It was probably easier to choreograph a realistic one-on-many sword fight with a dual-wielding Dane. That sequence was spectacular. I love when Ned used his forearm guard to block a blow. Very cool. And second fun fact, the actor who played the Night King in season 6 and 7, Vladimir Fjordik, he helped work on the Tower of Joy fight scene, so we should expect the Night King to have at least one epic weapons fight in season 8. Imagine him taking on 7 heroes or something like that. That'd be sick. Moving on, the Greyjoy Rebellion. Ned used ICE there, at least according to the non-canon History and Lore video.
My father with our ancestral sword ICE, and King Robert with his warhammer against a horde of axe-wielding Ironborn.
But take it with a grain of salt. You'll see why in a sec. In the books and the show alike, Ned did not have ICE on him when his men were attacked by Jaime's men outside the brothel. But you could argue that he was a horse in the books, and a greatsword is not very useful when a horse, since you need one hand on the reins or a shield. That's why Dothraki tend to use aurochs, curved swords. And you could argue that Ned did not expect to be fighting, so even though he was walking in the show, he left ICE back at the Red Keep because he didn't expect to need it. Still, it is what it is. He did not use ICE in that fight. But here's the icing on the cake. Offline, George R. R. Martin has said that ICE was very large and cumbersome, a ceremonial sword for beheading people more than a fighting sword, so he suggests that it was, quote, probably too heavy and clumsy to use unless you're the Mountain. So for me, Ned did not use ICE in battle. But there's an argument to be made for fans who want to believe that Ned did. First, some people in A Song of Ice and Fire did use great swords in battle. Randall Tarley is the best example, with his Valyrian Steel Greatsword Heartsbane. The Lannisters once had a Valyrian Steel Greatsword called Bright Roar, but King Tommen II Lannister brought it with him on a hero's journey to Valyria, and neither the man nor the sword returned. Many of Bolton's men had great swords when they first arrived to Winterfell. A Mountain Clan man used a greatsword when they attacked Lady Cat and Tyrion. Jaime Lannister held a golden greatsword as he stood vigil at Lord Tywin Lannister's wake for nearly a week straight without sleeping. And even Joffrey and Margaery together used one to cut open the wedding cake in the books. Alright, those last two don't really count. Sir Ilyn Payne, he used a great sword for beheadings, and carried one with him on his adventures in the books with Jaime, so presumably it was his weapon of choice as well, even for battle. And someone attacked Tyrion at the Battle of Blackwater with a greatsword. Clan champions used huge two-handed greatswords, and Mance Rayder, glamored as Rattleshirt, wielded a greatsword as he schooled Jon in the training yard. Ser Gregor wielded a greatsword, one-handed, and his was 6 feet long. It was enormous, but then again, he's enormous. Sandor used one, Stur, Magnar of the Thenns had one in the books, and the Greatjon wielded the biggest, ugliest greatsword that Bran had ever seen. Last but not least, in the books, Ser Arthur Dayne's sword Dawn was a greatsword. But Sandor and Stur are beasts. The Greatjon is nearly 7 feet tall, the mountain's closer to 8 than 7, and Ser Arthur Dayne, along with Selmy and possibly Jaime, is the best known swordsman in modern times. So if we put Ser Ilyn Payne and Ser Arthur Dayne aside, dudes who wielded greatswords in battle were typically huge, formidable men, which Ned was not. But neither was Randall Tarley. So it's possible that Ned chose to use ice in battle as well. At the end of the day, there are various versions of the story. There's the book version, which is unclear about whether or not Ned used ice in battle. Layer in George R. R. Martin's offline commentary, and it becomes a no. The show is also unclear, but layer in the history and lore videos, and it becomes a yes. On top of that, my favorite author, the man who created Bridge 4 and Stormlight Archive, Brandon Sanderson. As he often says, a story is not finished when he finishes writing it. It's not finished when the editors tweak stuff or when it hits the shelves at bookstores. A story only comes to life when it plays out inside someone's imagination. Brandon Sanderson encourages readers to use line item veto power. If he writes that someone has a mustache but you see the character without one, then the character doesn't have one. The story's yours. In my story, ice was a ceremonial sword, not used for battle. But while making this video, I've been picturing Ned bludgeoning opposition in battle, so I guess that version of story has just come to life too. 2 for the price of 1, and I'm not complaining. Which version's real to you? Let me know in the comments, but that's it for this one. If you like this type of video, check out the popular Game of Thrones questions playlist. Alright, catch you on the flip side.